Welcome to the Right Place podcast, where we learn with you how to build connections that matter, relationships that last, and businesses that thrive. My name is John Watson, and as always, I'm joined by my co-pilot here, Mr. Rudolf Rautenbach. Rudolf, how's it going in Pretoria?
Good, thanks, John. I quite like the mister that you've put in front of that. Makes me seem important. But yeah, going well. I been very busy the last few weeks and enjoyed it. But looking forward to a bit of winter slumber coming up, hopefully.
Also busy with some pretty interesting projects and working on some CBN things in between. But yeah, going good and looking forward to our discussion today. We've taken a little bit of a different angle. In summary, I saw a post a couple of days ago by Sahil Bloom, who's a well-known content creator on LinkedIn. His speciality is the Curiosity Chronicle, which is his bi-weekly newsletter, where he talks about growing businesses and how to improve your life, fitness, health, business, coaching, all of that type of stuff. He's very well spoken. And his article attracted my attention because he said networking is dead. And we'll put a link to the article in the description below and also on LinkedIn. But his article said networking is dead. And he came up with 4 principles of anti-networking. And I know we've spoken quite a bit about networking on this channel and building relationships and making connections that matter. So I thought today we could just reflect on his article, react a bit. Do we agree? Do we not agree? And yeah, I think maybe from the get-go, Rudolf, you've also seen this article that I sent to you. Just in a nutshell, what is your view on it before we dive in a bit deeper?
Yeah, John, thanks. I think very relevant. And a lot of what he says is not really anti-networking. I think that it's a nice catchphrase and a nice way to attract attention. But I think it reinforces how we've been talking about networking over a long time now, and not just going for a once-off and attending an event. An event and networking, in my mind, is 2 different types of things. Whereas if you attend an event, you might meet someone new. But what happens after that event with this new contact, I normally call relationship building. And that is where the hard work starts, and where you really get into getting to know each other, understanding what the people is about, what they do, and also how you can assist each other. You can't do that just by attending a networking event. There's a deeper level of relationship building that must still happen. And I think he enforces that and to how you get to that point where you get to know new people, get to know the right people, and then also build on that by creating value and adding value to them, which I think we've discussed quite a few times. It would be nice to delve into that a little bit more. So if I can ask you then, myself and Paul, with our business arrangements, we've been talking about how do we get into a boardroom? How do we get into a meeting? Because if you're in the meeting, you can potentially convince the guys to take your solution. But it's the matter of getting into that boardroom to pitch your idea. And I think one of his first points is to find value-aligned rooms, places where you can meet people that are the same as yours, the same value principles, the same structures almost that you follow. So how do you actually go about finding those spaces where your relationships would actually function optimally?
I've got 2 views on this. And I think it starts with a little bit of research. You need to, if you want to be in these rooms, if you want to get to these boardrooms, into these meetings, you're going to need to do some research. Who is your ideal client? Who are the people we need to be talking to? And at what level do we need to be talking to these people? And I believe some of these rooms may exist already. I think there's a lot of private networking gatherings happening, and you just might not be aware of it. CFOs are hanging out together, CEOs are hanging out together, board members know each other. A lot of these board members serve on different boards or in similar boards as well. So you need to then identify, talk to some of these people and just test the waters. Hey, do you meet up regularly? What's going on? So if there is something that is already established, try and find it and try and squeeze your way in somehow. It might be a bit of a long game there because you obviously have to build a relationship with someone. They're not just going to let you into a private setting. And it might be a bit of a public setting. what I've told people as well is these big conferences, the big conferences are good, but a lot of these big conferences, and I saw it with my own eyes at the mining in Durban earlier this year, you've got the big conference happening at the Cape Town International Convention Center, but then around it, there's all these little events happening, dinners, lunches, breakfasts, cocktail evenings, and that's actually where a lot of the big business is going down. And these are the rooms that you want to find yourself in. But that's going to take network building, relationship building, and figuring it out. And then the opposite of that is when you've done your research and you see it doesn't exist, then you have to almost create it. And I've said this for a while to people, you need to create your own event where you're the captain of the ship, where you can add value to the people there, you can attract the right people to your event, and you can run it. You can elevate your visibility because Rudolf is in charge of this event, and we're going to do it every quarter, and these are the people that are going to come, and this is why we get together, and this is the value add. So in terms of the rooms, those I think are maybe the two options there, but it's going to take some time and effort. You cannot just get a quick invite, blitz the room, throw your business cards around. I mean, you'll never be invited back. People will just ignore you. So it's going to take work to get into the room, and it's going to take work to stay in the room.
Yeah, I like that, John. I also want to add maybe that we should not only look at professional networking events. There's a lot of other things. I know you're an avid golfer, but I mean, if you're a member of a golf club, that is also a networking opportunity, and to meet the people at the golf club. Don't just go and play and go home, but maybe have drinks with the guys, understand what they're about, get to know the people around that. I've never really done it, but I do like running, and I should probably join a running club because I think that would keep you accountable in that to ensure that you continue running and exercising well, but also that you meet the people there. It's a nice way of a common shared interest that you can go about meeting a lot of new people. And I find that a lot of times these relationships spill over into professional relationships later on because you've got something to talk about. You've got something to share, and you almost become friends. And then you start talking about work later on. It's a nice way to meet new people. Church, all those type of settings you can utilize to build relationships on. I find that sometimes some of the business sides can be a little bit stiff because people think that they're going to trade here. Typically, those business cards, handing out the business cards doesn't work. So what I would do in such a way or such a setting is to rather only speak to about 5 or so people, but connect thoroughly and ensure that you understand that person at a deeper level, and not only try and meet the whole host of people. Don't build a contact list, but rather build relationships through that and get to know the person. So on that, John, how do you go about meeting those people? Because I know Sahil wrote in his post as well about asking engaging questions, which I found very interesting because sometimes if you're not prepared for that, you're a little bit all over the show. So how do you go about introducing yourself to someone else without asking the obvious question of, so what do you do? And then everyone looks at each other and you don't know what to talk about further.
Well, I think it comes back to the overarching principle, be more interested than interesting. So be more interested in what the other people are about and who they are and their story, and then try and pick up little things that you can attach to. Oh, you also a cyclist. Oh, you also went to University of Cape Town. Oh, you also did MBA, and kind of attach to that. And that's where you kind of build up a conversation. But yes, his principle number 2 there was ask engaging questions. And I think we've spoken about questions before that you can ask at networking events. And I've done actually a talk on it at some other networking events. And some of his questions are really good because it makes you think. It's not your, what do you do? Where's your building? Where did you study? It's quite it will get people's attention because it's not your run-of-the-mill questions. And the first one I really like a lot is, what's your connection to this place? And that just kind of sets the foundation. I mean, where does this person fit in? Is Is he maybe the founder of the thing? Is he a newcomer? Is he an old member? Does he know the organizer? So just asking, what's your connection to this, can really give you a very quick insight into where does this person fit in. You might be talking to the organizer or the founder or the sponsor of the event and you don't even know it. So asking this question, what is your connection to this place, can really accelerate, okay, cool, I really need to pay attention now, or this is a really good guy to know. Maybe he can introduce me to some other people. And then question number 2 is something that I do too little, actually, because we can easily get bogged down in the details of your work or the situation of the country. But asking a positive question like, what are you most excited about currently? And people love talking about, maybe they're excited because they got a new dog, or they got a new bicycle, or their new website went live, or they've just come back from a trip overseas. Get people to talk about the positive things. I think we addressed this on the previous podcast as well. Don't bring the room down. You want to keep the energy up at a certain level, because then people want to talk more and they want to engage with you more.
Yeah, very true. I think the questions make it easier. If you think about those 2 questions that you've mentioned, it actually helps you to prepare well, because you've got these very standard questions, but also very relevant. It's not difficult technical questions or maybe specifically linked to the keynote speaker or anything. It's rather generic, and it can work in any setting. So if you almost memorize these 2 or 4 questions, you've got something in the bank to start the conversation with. And I think that is most of the time the primary issue for people, is that I don't know what to talk about to other people. And the way to get around that is to not talk, to ask a question and listen and feed off what the other person is saying, and directing the conversation rather than being the conversation. And I think that is those questions actually just helps you to start the conversation, to light the fire a little bit. And I quite like the one about reading. What's the favorite book that you are reading currently? What have you read recently? And I think for me, I quite like reading as well, specifically on business-related books and biographies, sports especially. I like those type of books. So if someone would ask me the question, I would be ready with an answer. Which brings me to another point is, if you have these questions in your armory, in your back pocket, ready to ask, be sure to be able to answer that question as well. Because if I ask you a question and you answered it, typically, or if you ask me the question, I would typically answer you, and what about you, John? I would revert and ask the question back at you, just because it's a two-way conversation. And I would be interested in what you have to say about that same question. So don't just go and prepare for the question, but also prepare to answer that specific question that you have asked. And in that way, both of you have spoken and the conversation has started. And then you can pivot from the answer and say, yeah, okay, so you know the speaker. Yeah, I've also met him, or whatever you can add to that. But the conversation is not a one word answer that just stops afterwards. It's something that flows, and you can build on that going forward.
I agree with you. And I think I would add to that is, don't get into a competition with the other person. If they've just come back from Disneyland and they played golf with Barack Obama and they got a new house, don't try and now one-up them and say something even more extravagant or more lavish, or start lying about how amazing you actually are. Be happy if someone's going through an amazing time, be happy for them. Again, don't compete, and don't then try and bring them down to your level. Like if someone just launched a new business and yours failed, or you're going through, you can really do yourself a disservice if you're not happy for a person. So if someone's really talking positive and they're excited, just go with that. Be happy for them, be engaging, show your interest, that person doesn't feel like, oh, this guy doesn't really care that I'm doing so well, or that I'm having a good run here. He just wants to talk about himself. But I really think that the quality of your questions can really enhance the quality of your conversation. And then the next time you see this person, or the next 2 or 3 times, you build on those conversations that you've had. And this accelerates your relationship with the person. I've met the right person. We got off well because I asked the right question, because I gave them space. I was very interested in who they were. And now the relationship starts building up. And I think that takes us actually to principle number 3, which goes hand in hand, I think, with the good questions. And that's become a level 2 to 3 listener. So one listener, what Sahil says here in his post is, at level 1, you're waiting to talk. So someone is talking, you're listening, nothing is registering in your brain. You're just waiting to talk back. You're just waiting to say your 2 cents, or to tell your funky story about the weekend, or whatever the case may be. So you've asked these great questions. If your eyes glaze over and you start looking around and you're not paying attention, you just wait. That's not how you're going to build a relationship. Listening is just as important as the questions. So what he says here is that at level 2 and 3, you're listening to learn and understand the other person. So you're picking up on cues. This is what makes them tick. This is what's important to them. This is what they're going through. These are some of the key decisions they've made in their life. So you need to start listening at that level, because they're going to be sharing nuggets of information, and you need to take hold of those. Oh, this is important. Okay, the next time I talk to this person, I want to bring this up, or I can use this to my advantage if we get to a business conversation.
Very good. I always picture someone else standing there like a puppy, almost a young dog, and you jumping up and down because you want to talk next. And I see my son in a classroom setting. They all raise their hand at once, and they just want to be the person to talk. And I think we make that mistake, and I'm rather guilty of that as well. That you say something and it reminds me of a situation or something that I read or whatever I can come up with. And I'm so focused on saying that I don't hear what you're saying. Or secondly, by the time you finish talking, I've had so many ideas of what I want to say, I can't remember one of them. And then a lot of time I'm like, because I'm not ready for what to say next. So I think be focused on what the other person is saying and try and memorize, try and remember what he's talking about. And I quite like that you take those aspects of the conversation and build on that, but not just for the rest of the conversation, but actually for future engagement. I heard a story once, and I quickly want to share that. It's one of the Rockefeller founders, one of the initial guys that made the big bucks, and then the rest of the family just built on that. And apparently when he passed away, they found a cabinet in his office or somewhere with a lot of note cards, these little cards where he wrote someone's name on it, and he wrote the date that he met him, but he also wrote down the conversation. He wrote down things like his wife was in hospital, his kids do this type of sport, anything that came up in the conversation. And what they told in that story was, in the next conversation, a year later, they'll have a catch-up meeting, or they'll see each other again, and he would have gone to that note, read it again, and when he meet him, he's like, so did your wife recover well from the surgery she had last year when we spoke? And everyone thought he has this brilliant memory, but meanwhile he made a plan to ensure that he personalizes his conversations, which I think is brilliant. I wish I was that organized, and went through the trouble to actually remember all of these things. But he personalized the conversation to such an extent that people felt special. And when they feel special, they'll do a lot more for you. And that's one of the ways that he actually got into a lot of business deals and things going forward. Not that I say we should also do that. The principle there for me is the intent at which he listened, and to ensure that he remembers and made a plan to remember what we spoke about. And not just business things, the personal stuff, the additional things that you can relate to with this person, which I think is very important. And that then, John, helps us with principle number 4, which you can maybe quickly intro on to make these follow-ups and to be creative in your follow-ups.
I think this all comes down to you building the relationship almost one step at a time. So you've met the person, you've engaged in the conversation with good questions, you've listened properly. And I really like your example that you shared about Rockefeller. He didn't have a good memory, but he had a system, or just having something in place that if this is an important relationship, I need to remember these important things about this person. And this, like you said, comes in beautifully with principle number 4 that Sahil mentions, which is creative follow-ups. So you've made your mental notes, you've got a plan to follow up. Maybe the person mentioned that they're going to be traveling overseas. So you follow up and you send them a book about traveling to America or to Europe or something like that, and say, hey, I thought about your trip, your upcoming trip. This is a book I used many years ago, or these are some of my favorite places in Germany or in Japan, whatever the case may be. Or you share with them something else that you mentioned in your conversation, a podcast, an Audible book that you're currently listening to. So you're not actually saying, hey, we must meet and talk business. We're saying, hey, you're important enough that in our conversation, you mentioned this. I'm connecting you with something related to that. And that person will say, hey, wow, that's really cool of you, Rudolf. I'm definitely going to listen to this. I'm definitely going to look out for that. And this then reinforces a relationship because you haven't just sent a, when can we meet for coffee? You promised me a $1 billion deal, something like that. So you've gone out of your way to connect with them on a level that's got nothing to do with business. You haven't even spoken about business yet. I mean, not once have we talked about how you must get to the bottom line, when you must sign the check and all that. We've gone through building the relationship to have such a strong foundation that the business will almost take care of itself. And I think that's the best place to be in, where you're going to be just naturally do business with this person because I've got such a solid foundation. But I think these creative follow-ups that you can do are really, really cool. One of my good friends in the networking world, Monique Labat, she's very passionate about Mauritius. She helps connect South African businesses to Mauritius and vice versa. And she's got a one-pager of her top 10 things to do in Mauritius. And she updates it on an annual basis. And she shares that. She's shared that with me many years ago when we went to Mauritius. And we did one or two of the things on there, and it was excellent. And then if she updates it, she sends it along, and I've shared it with other people as well. And it's such a cool idea. And I'm thinking back to our recent discussion with Susan Murray about the bucket list of Pretoria. Maybe that's something that they can incorporate just to reinforce the relationship. And again, you're not talking about business. You're giving somebody something to look at, to see. And maybe they're like, hey, let's go and visit that place. And that reinforces the relationship way more than anything else, I think.
Yeah, very interesting. I do agree. I tend to go into connecting people as a default. So if I hear what the person's doing or what they're interested in, I would say, yeah, but I know this person, I can connect you with him if you want. You might have a similar interest or so on. So that's my default reaction. But I do like the value add that is not necessarily other people from this conversation in terms of a book or a podcast or news articles and so on. And then I also think that there's a way that we can assist other people. A lot of us are professionals and we work with our minds. We don't necessarily have a physical product. We tend to be in that frame of mind where if I give you advice, it's billable hours, because that's the way we've been taught through articles and whatever else. But if I can assist you through a conversation to just refer you to the correct place or to tell you what I know in a casual conversation that would save you time or save you money, that is a great way of adding value to someone else without making it look like, listen, this is a business transaction already, or yeah, set up a meeting, then we can unpack this problem of yours. If I know the answer, why not just give it to the person? You build trust through that way, but you can then maybe consult to him later on. Various ways that we can add value to the person. What I do like from Sahil's little post there on that section is that you almost do this before you see each other again. A week or so later, you're like, listen, send me your address. I want to courier you this book that I've read or that I think is would be valuable to you. So you've not seen each other again. It's not like you've set up a second meeting and you take the book with you. Actually built that bridge to ensure that you are going to have another meeting. And I think that is a nice way of just cementing a bit of a foundation here to build on, to get into a room again, because otherwise you're just going to have this conversation and beg for a meeting. Listen, I want to have a meeting because I want to give you a book. And then it becomes effort. But if I can send you the book and you value that gesture almost, it makes the follow-up meeting a lot more exciting, but also a lot more possible to start off with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the follow-up comes in actually doing it and knowing that I've had a meeting with this person. I really want to invest in this relationship. I think it can pay off in the long run. And then almost schedule my follow-up. Okay, I met this person on Monday. Okay, maybe next Wednesday, I'm going to send them something, an article, a podcast. I'm going to forward them a book, or I'm going to connect them with someone else in my network. And that always keeps you top of mind. And the thing is that these little small things that you do, and they seem insignificant, but over time they add value to the relationship. And the other person wants to hear from you. They look forward to talking to you. And when you do see them, it gives them the opportunity to say, hey, thank you, John. That was such an excellent book. Or thanks for recommending that podcast. I learned so much. And that's a great conversation starter because you've added value. And it's adding this unexpected value. And I know Renee Lombard has talked about this as well with how you handle clients. Adding unexpected value is part of client retention and can be part of your relationship building as well. When out of the blue you contact someone, hey, got a good deal for you, or I saw this, I thought you'd be interested. Again, you're not talking about business. You value the person and you value them in your network. And I think, again, like I've written on LinkedIn before, if you're into transactional networking, I'll do something for you if you do something for me. You're going to run out of people in your network. No one is going to be interested in talking to you because they know how you work. But if you're always ahead in terms of adding the value, people are going to be attracted to you. And people that you've got this relationship with are going to introduce you to other people. And then that's when this investment in the relationship pays off, because people are going to say, hey, Rudolf, I really want you to meet this guy. Or you're at an event and someone sees you across the room. Hey, so good to see you. Let me introduce you to this person. So you've kept your side of the deal squeaky clean. You've added value. And I think this is what people miss about networking. They start networking when things are falling apart because they've got no relationships to lean on.
Yeah, simple example. In the week, you send a link to myself and Chris on how to shorten long links, website links. And such a stupid thing, but we've all been using a specific platform that is free, but it can only allow you 5 a month. And you've sent one that is 1,000 a month. And it's something that a lot of times when we write, we utilize, and then you get stuck after 5. So it solved the problem of mine. I never asked or spoken about it. I've never really did anything about it. I just ran into the problem. And then I got the link from him, like, okay, cool. This is a new bookmark on my browser, and I'm going to use this one going forward. And in that 5 seconds, you've actually added value, solved the problem of mine without knowing it, but just giving something that is almost irrelevant, but without anyone asking, already made up this build trust. And like, John knows stuff. Next time if I struggle with something, I can just as well ask you. So it keeps the conversation going, I suppose, which I think is very relevant. And also, for one, we haven't heard of Chris in a few weeks. And then we started the conversation and just by a simple thing that came up. So it's a nice way of just adding value irrespective, not just on things that you know of the person, but actually on almost random things like the Mauritius thing. She might send it to 5 or 10 people, not knowing if they are currently interested in Mauritius, but it might trigger something for them. And then they move in that direction. So yeah, be kind, be a nice human being, and then these things would naturally happen as well.
No, I agree with you, Rudolf. I think the relationship building side is something that people need to take seriously, but you can also have a lot of fun with it. You can be a fun person to know. You can be a fun person to have in someone's network. And I really try and go out of my way to be the most useful person you've ever met. And I mean, there's no gold medal or Guinness World Record for anything like that. But if I see something useful and I think of someone would really benefit from this, I'm going to connect these two people together, then just do it. Then just do it. Don't put it on your to-do list or make these unending promises. And do it in the moment as well. Spend 5 seconds sending it on or sending yourself an email to do it later. All of these small little micro things that you do adds value over time and builds up. And I think that's the purpose of Sahil's post that we've discussed today. That networking is dead. Old school networking is pretty much dead. People see straight through it if you're just out for yourself. But these 4 principles, find value-aligned rooms, which we've discussed, asking engaging questions, becoming a level 2 or level 3 listener, and then using creative follow-ups. Doing this consistently will build relationships consistently and attract the right people to you consistently. You can't just have a panic attack one day and I need to start networking. Things are going wrong. Doing relationship building slowly but surely, spending time every week, checking in with your network, connecting with them, all of that can really, really do wonders for you in the long run.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, thanks, John. Exciting. We must credit Sahil and thank him for this. Suppose we'll tag him on the LinkedIn post anyways. Yeah, nice, good, relevant content and things that we can easily apply. And I think if you just focus on these basic things, you'll be a much better marketer or networker than probably half the people in the room anyways. So, yeah, I think that's all from my side. I don't know, John, if you want to add something as a last thing. Otherwise, enjoy your week.
No, thanks, Rudolf. No, great conversation. Really enjoyed Sahil's post. I'm grateful for his amazing content that he puts out there. And also I'm happy with the support that we're getting on the channel, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Thank you to everyone that's engaging with us and checking us out on LinkedIn as well. Please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. And yes, we'll see you next week at the right place.